This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
The law of attraction states that everything is energy and that like attracts like. True spirituality states that the only true reality is that of oneness, unity, and unconditional love and forgiveness. Together, these two are attached at the hip and perform a beautiful symbiotic dance together. Hi, I'm Carl Gruber, author of the brand new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship. This is a book that will show you how to build a rock-solid personal foundation based on unchanging, eternal, universal truth that shows you how to become a consistent co-creator with the universe to create the life you love to live and live to love. Get your copy today of my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship, and learn how to manifest the life you truly desire to be living. Now available as an ebook or paperback on Amazon. Hey, thank you friends for joining us here on the show World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment. I'm your host, Carl Gruber. Now, I started this show in 2018, and the name of the show reflects our mission. That is to find out why now, more than ever, the people of the world are awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. And we believe that this mission, this quest to know, is more important than ever as we traverse the world that seems to be a minefield of chaos, judgment, and no hope. But we believe that the light of the truth of all that is has simply been hidden in a veil of darkness. And we're here to pull that veil back and let the light shine in on you, on me, and on the world. So thank you for being here. So we are honored to have Kirk Nugent as our guest here on episode number 186 of World Awakenings. Kirk was born in Jamaica and then he moved to the U.S. with his family when he was a young teen. From a young age, he grabbed onto the teachings and influences of many of the day's positive possibility thinkers and incorporated it into his own life. And he soon became known as the people's poet and has since traveled the world helping and teaching people to grab on to their life purpose and passion to be all they can be. He's also the author of the books The Unpopular Truth, Answer the Call, From Depression to Destiny, and The Sound of Melanin, Reclaiming Our Divinity While Restoring Our Dignity. And with that, man, Kirk, I am so honored to have you on the show, man. I can't wait to talk to you.
Carl, I'm honored to be here, man. Thanks for the invite. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope I got all those names of your books correct. You probably have like 20 more books.
No, those are it. The last one is The Sound of Melanin.
Melanin, okay. Well, we'll find out more about that. But, you know, as we were talking before we came on here, you have a really incredible life. And I'm really curious about all you do and offer the world. But first, I would love to hear how it was that a young teenager from Jamaica who just moved to the U.S. came to be known as a people's poet. And as a matter of fact, I saw in one of your books you state that you are a living testament of a soul once battered and bruised, but have emerged victorious in the face of overwhelming odds. I bet there's a good story there.
Well, in Jamaica, I grew up in a very, for lack of a better term, let's say dysfunctional family. My dad was emotionally abusive. My mom dealt with the abuse, and then it spiraled down, down chain. So when I came to the United States, I felt free. I felt like I was no longer under this oppressive regime. As a matter of fact, I remember getting on the plane in Jamaica, and I prayed a prayer. I said, God, if you allow this plane to land safely in the United States, I promise you, no one will ever lay a finger on me again. And came to the United States and didn't fit in anywhere. I went to, when I came here at age 15, I had no idea I was black. The kid that I sat next to in school in Jamaica had blonde hair, blue eyes, had no idea he was white. He was just my friend. In the United States, everything was colored and colored, so to speak. So I went to my freshman and sophomore year, I went to an all black school. My junior and senior year, we moved and I went to an all white school where I was the only black kid. So I saw the difference in world. I experienced police brutality. I experienced racism. I experienced hate for no reason. So it molded me in a place where I felt like I didn't belong in the world. I didn't belong in my family and I didn't belong in the larger world. And I started searching. I always loved to read as a child. So I would read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I was 15 years old reading these books. And as I kept reading, my consciousness kept expanding. Then I came onto spiritual books like The Law of One, the raw material. And at 18, I didn't understand what I was reading, but something clicked. And somewhere around in how did I become the people's poet? I remember, do I have time to tell the story? I'm going to make it as quickly as possible.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, we'd love to hear it.
I was working in New Jersey at a furniture store at Siemens Furniture. I was about maybe 24 years old at the time. And I went to this Jamaican restaurant to buy some food at night. And there was a young man there selling newspapers. He's from the Nation of Islam. I'm new to the country. I didn't know what that was. So he said to me, young man, won't you help me sell some paper and start your own business? I said, sell some paper? Man, I don't have time for that. He said, well, why not? I said, I got a good job. He said, well, what about after work? Dude, I work from 10 in the morning till 10 at night. I don't have time after work. He said, well, what about on your day off? I said, I work 6 days a week. The one day that I'm off, it's time to do my laundry and get back to work. And he looked at me with curiosity and he said, you just do this on your own? No one forces you to do this? And I felt very proud because I'm a young black man and I'm doing the right thing. I'm wearing a suit to work. Yeah, I do this on my own. No one forces me. He said, oh, young brother, that's a shame. You were born at the wrong time. Now, I was just beginning to read books on astrology and past lives, Carl, so that piqued me. And when he said I was born at the wrong time, what do you mean I was born at the wrong time? Tell me more. And he looked me dead in the eyes, Carl, and he said 7 words that changed my life forever. He said, you would have made a good slave.
Whoa.
Carl, if I were going to be a slave, I would want to be a bad slave, a slave that kept master. I did not want to be a good slave. So I went home, and for the first, I turned on the television because what he said triggered me so much I couldn't eat the food. And when I turned on the TV, it was Showtime at the Apollo. Steve Harvey was hosting, and there was a young woman on there by the name of Jessica Care Moore, and she was doing poetry, and she won. Next Saturday, I came home and I watched it again. She won 5 weeks in a row that they told her she couldn't compete anymore. And they asked her, where do you perform? She said, someplace in Brooklyn. And when she mentioned it, I started going to that cafe. And then I learned how to compete in poetry. Within a year, I became the New Yorker Grand Slam champion. They're flying me all over the country to perform one particular poem. And it led to me performing in college markets. And my fee, I was in the poetry club, I was making maybe $25 a night for a show. And on the college market, I was making $800. And I got so good on the college market, within maybe 2 years, my fees went from $800 to about $4,000. And that's how I became known the people's poet, because a lot of the issues that I tackled were social issues, political issues, and issues that the people, everyday people, dealt with.
Wow. And I bet you weren't working at the store anymore once you started doing that.
Oh, no, I got fired for sneaking out of my job going to the store. So it led to my destiny. This is where I belong. And when I went on the mic, the first time I went on the mic, I remember I was reading my poem and shaking like a leaf. But when I came off the stage, I knew this is my purpose. I'm going to do this until the day I die.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Also just further try and find out a little bit more about you, Kirk. You do have sickle cell anemia. Is that still an issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was born with sickle cell and diagnosed, the doctors predicted that I would be dead by age 13 in Jamaica. So there wasn't any extended care made for me. No one planned for me to go to college or anything of the sort. And then when I came to the United States, they wanted to put me on permanent disability, give me a check for $400, and I just laid home. And I told the doctor, no, I came here for a lot more than that. I'm not doing that. And I'm not disabled. And they told me as long as I live, my eyes would be yellow. I have to be on prescription medication. As the internet came around and I started reading and doing research, I realized my eyes are yellow because my liver is toxic. So all I have to do is detoxify my liver, my eyes won't be yellow. And I started taking better care of myself. I started taking care of my diet. I eat one meal a day. I fast for 23 hours every single day. So doing that, I'm 56 years old now. And the doctors are surprised when I do go to the doctor because I don't look like a sickler. You're supposed to be skinny and scrawny, and I am, in my own words, cut like an action figure. So yes, it's not a problem.
Wow, wow, amazing. And the other thing too, I've had so many guests on here who have lived a life of trauma. And for me, growing up in suburbia outside of Cleveland, Ohio, my brother and I never realized till we got older we had no trauma.
Right.
We didn't know. I had no, physical, mental abuse, emotional abuse. But with that being said, it seems that most of the world is like this. Why is it that trauma, mentally, physically, emotionally, are so ingrained in humankind?
Well, I think we come in unhealed, and a lot of times we're not. I wouldn't say we come in unhealed. The trauma, in my case and in my family, was passed down from generation to generation. My mom had issues with her dad, and then she married my dad, who was her dad times 10. So the issue with her dad and my dad became issues with men. And then me being the only boy, my mom had issues with me as well. So not having the equipment to heal, and then in order to heal your trauma, you have to take personal responsibility and accountability for the behaviors that you don't like. Most people are not willing to look at the behaviors that they don't like and say, well, I have to do better. Instead, they projected, well, you triggered me.
Mm.
And they don't realize that someone triggering them is just a mirror showing them where they need to heal. So someone triggering you, so to speak, is a gift. And we also have cultural triggers. I'm told I'm supposed to be triggered if someone that looks like you calls me the N-word. But why would I be triggered if I don't identify with that? So a trigger is nothing more than showing you the place that you need to heal. And it takes a lot of accountability to do the work, especially if you don't have a licensed therapist and someone to walk through it. And most people, they don't have that. They don't have access to that. They never do the work and they keep projecting. And we're taught to look outside. The issue is never within. The issue is outside. So if I'm looking in the mirror, my shirt is stained, I keep spraying Windex on the mirror and rubbing it, and the stain is not coming off my shirt, I'm pissed at the mirror, not knowing that it has nothing to do with the mirror. The mirror is just a teacher. And in one of my poems, I said, the lesson repeats until the lesson is learned. Same teacher, different face.
Wow, boy, there's so many topics. We could dive down a rabbit hole here, almost like modern medicine. Well, let's fix the effect and not the source of the problem. And that's the thing, even the trauma. I mean, we could dive down deep into Akashic records and karma, and all that. But I also am really curious what led you to study all the great positive possibility thinkers like Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, both who I've seen speak live. And then I know Les Brown, a former disc jockey in Columbus, Ohio, is a huge influence on you. How did that shape you to who you've become now?
Carl, I can't tell you what led me to read those books. I knew I came into this world loving to read. Like whenever my mom went out, she had to bring me back a book. If she didn't bring back a book to read, I would just start, having a fit. And by the time I got to age 6, I read every book in the house. There was nothing left to read but the Bible. So I read the Bible from cover to cover at age 6. And then as I came to the United States, money became more accessible where I could go to Borders bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, and get books. And Books for me were like shoes to women. I would go in the store and have a self-talk. Okay, Kirk, we only spending $20, no more than $20. And I would come out with $250 worth of books. And I will repeat the process next week. But for some reason, I was drawn to the spiritual uplifting books because I always wanted, if I came in contact with someone, Carl, I wanted to either leave them where I met them or take them higher. But I never want someone to be in the presence of Kirk Nugent and felt lower. So I was always aware of what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, and just the energy that I have. And then the books that I read led me to my destiny. When I first heard Les Brown and he said, there's greatness within you and you've got to be hungry, I wanted to meet Les. So I remember Les was speaking in New York. Now, this is in the 90s, Carl. This is before GPS and any of that stuff. I was living in New Jersey and I went over, I think, the Verizon Bridge or Verizona Bridge 3-4 times trying to find where he was speaking. By the time I got there, I missed him. And I decided if this opportunity would present itself again, I will not leave without meeting Les Brown. So I was giving a speech in Indiana University, and I was told Les was going to be in Miami the next day. And I got in my car from Indiana, driving all through the night. It was like maybe a 20-hour drive trip. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, the person who told me Les was going to be there called and said, hey, Kirk, I just looked at Les's website. He's going to be in Texas with TD Jakes. But my spirit said, keep going. So I drove to this hotel in Miami, got there and just sat in the lobby. And a friend of mine met me there. And we have no idea if Les is going to show up. And then Les walked through the door. And she said to me, I have a poem called I'm Here to Claim My Destiny. And I'm there like in awe. And she said, Kirk, are you going to sit here or are you going to go claim your destiny? So I got up, built up the courage, and I walked over to Les. And he was just shaking people's hand. So he put his hand out. And I said to him, I didn't put my hand out. I said, Mr. Brown, I drove 21 hours to meet you. I did not come here for a handshake. And he laughed. He said, what's your name, young man? I said, Kirk Nugent. And I said to him, listen, you know how you're the best at what you do? But if you say it, you'll come across arrogant. I'm the best at what I do. Can I show it to you? There's a poetry club next door. We could go in and I could do my thing. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, we're not selling any more books right now. We're going next door to hear, what's your name? Kirk Nugent. We're going to hear Kirk Nugent. So we went next door to the poetry club. Now, this was a young people thing. No one knew who Les was. But when I walked in, they were like, oh my God, Kirk Nugent, the Grand Slam champion. So the host asked me if I wanted to perform. I said yes. She told the guy on the mic, okay, wrap it up. I went on stage and I did the poem, I'm Here to Claim My Destiny, which is, I took Les Brown's speech, You've Got to Be Hungry, and a T.D. Jakes speech and combined them into my own poetry. And when Les heard it, he said, we've got to work together. And I moved to Florida, moved in with Les, and the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. What a great story. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I do know Les is one of the most famous motivational speakers. Yeah. It's kind of funny because in many ways, I kind of follow the same path as you. Back in the 80s and 90s, I started reading, started with the Power of Positive Thinking with Dr.
Vincent Peale.
The father of the law of attraction, of positive thinking, I should say, and on, Napoleon Hill, all those things too. And I called it positive possibility power thinking, and also a huge change in my life and kind of led me on this path too. But further interesting things about you, Kirk, you speak a lot about how people are programmed to follow a certain path of school, work, life. Now, can you speak a bit and maybe explain how a person can walk that unbeaten path to personal success? I think you call it being a glitch in the matrix, right?
Yes, being a glitch in the matrix. So one of the thing that makes us unique is that we're all individual snowflakes. We were created to be divine. If there are 6 or 7 billion people on the planet right now, we're a part of a 7 billion piece puzzle. But if I look at the life of Carl and say, I want to be more like Carl, then I start trying to be like you, and I'm not being the piece of puzzle that I was meant to be to fit in. Now, we've been programmed, stay in your lane, color within the line, do what everyone else is doing, don't stand out, don't make any waves. And from that, we're robbed, or we give up our divinity. We give up our sovereignty. You saw that happen with COVID. A lot of people decided, well, I don't want to take this thing in my arm, but they say they had no choice because they'll lose their job. Now, here's the thing with us human beings. When we have to make a difficult decision that we don't want the consequence of the decision, we say we have no choice. But we always have a choice. We just don't want to make the hard decision. So most people go along to get along, and they live a life of quiet desperation. It's on the deathbed they look back and say, oh my God, if only I could do it over. The saving grace that I had when I was 20, I was working at an electronics store, like a Best Buy type store. And the owner of the store, his son worked with me in the electronics department, and it was time for promotion. And I knew I was due for a promotion. And long story short, they gave a promotion to this owner's son. And I was livid. I'm like, he comes in late. He's never on time. I'm the best salesperson in the company. You knew that. I got employee of the month. I was angry. But they gave him a promotion, and I quit the job. But 6 months later, this kid took a gun and blew his brains out because he couldn't please his dad. Now, I'm thinking his life is made because he's rich. His father's a millionaire. There's nothing that he wants for. But he was so empty inside. And that changed my life, because I'm like, wow, I thought he had everything, but he had nothing. And it made me become more empathetic. And when I look at people, I always ask them, not what do you do for a living, just what is your passion? Is this your passion? Can you die doing this? And I would always encourage people, listen, this thing goes by quickly. You want to make it count. And they program you to believe that it's money that counts, Carl, but it's not, baby. Money is important in the areas that money works. Zig Ziglar said that. But the relationships, Carl, is what's important. If I have all the money because this guy blew his brain out because he didn't have a relationship with his dad, or his dad didn't have a relationship with him. So I try to pay attention to the things that money can't buy. And at the same time, I always say, Kirk, know thyself, and to thine own self be true. So I'm not trying to fit in any box that they're trying to put me in. There's a lot of stuff that I do. I'm a speaker. I'm a poet. I speak about political issues. I speak about social issues. I speak about spiritual issues. The world would like to box you in and say, well, you can only pick one. No, I'm passionate about all of them. So I think the majority a lot of people lose their way because they're living a life that someone else dictated that they're supposed to live. My mom told me I'm supposed to be a nurse, so I'm a nurse. My dad said I'm supposed to be an attorney or I'm going to get kicked out of the will, so I'm an attorney. But if you trust yourself enough to say, you know what, I'm going to choose a path less traveled, and I'm going to follow my heart, it will lead you. Now, there's going to be some bumpy roads, Carl. You've had bumpy roads. I've had bumpy roads. We know that. But if you follow your heart, it will lead you to the place that you're destined to be. And you'll do the most good on the planet of being that unique piece of the puzzle that you came to be, instead of trying to copy someone else.
Man, everything you just said there, I have a feeling many of the viewers and listeners are going to say, oh, cripe, he's talking about me. Because most people are that way. I mean, yeah, I'm in my own life, I'm many ways that way myself, although, I kind of walk a different path like you at certain times in my life. But wow, very wise words for the ages. Thank you, Kirk. The one other thing too, this show is all about spirituality, and I know that is a hugely important topic for you. How do you define spirituality, and why is it important to incorporate it into your daily life?
Spirituality is simple. It's really just listen to the voice within. It's, again, to thine own self be true. And here's the thing. You take the average person in the United States and you say, hey, listen, Carl, I don't want to know your name. I don't want to know your marital status. I don't want to know how many kids you have. I don't want to know what you do for a living. Who are you, Carl? The average person can't tell you, because they're identified with all these parameters and these outside things that are given to them, which is not who they are. So spirituality to me is listening to the voice within and being true to that voice and allow myself to be guided by that voice. So the consensus, the masses might tell you, oh, listen, there's a plague going on right now, and for the good of the world, everybody needs to line up, roll their sleeves up, and do what needs to be done. If my spirit tell me, Kirk, that's not the way we're going to go, I'm going to follow that, even though the masses are going one way. I'm the only person in my family who went the other way. So I'm an outcast from doing that because I'm putting the world in danger. I'm jeopardizing this person. But my spirit told me, hey, Kirk, we didn't come here for that. If we could lick sickle cell when you're supposed to be dead at 13 and you're 56, we don't need this extra stuff that they put in our bodies because we don't know what's in it. I know what's in the carrots that I'm eating and the beets that I'm juicing, so we'll stick with that. You're good. But the average person doesn't have the fortitude, the intestinal fortitude, to stand up, even though it feels wrong inside. Quite a few of my friends said this thing didn't feel right, but they roll up their sleeve, they did it, and they're having complications now. So they weren't being true to themselves. And going back to spirituality, if your spirit will never lead you wrong. Even if you bump into a wall, there's a lesson for that wall to teach you. But you go along with the consensus of everyone else, you'll end up down a dark alley, and at 65, you're like, oh my God, how did I get here? I haven't really lived. And early in my life, I worked at a hospital, St. Barnabas in New Jersey, and I had to take people to the morgue at times. And I watched people die. And it's the same hospital where Whitney Houston had her baby. So it was a prestigious hospital. And I watched people come in there with millions, Carl, and they're dying, and no one visited. Why is that? Right? Why is that? That no one cared enough to come by your bedside. So all of these things made me think and say, Kirk, what's important? So again, going back to the argument, people get triggered. If someone says something, before I get upset, I said, Kirk, if you were on your deathbed taking your last breath, would this matter? No. If it wouldn't matter on my deathbed, it doesn't matter now. And I just let it slide. It's no big deal. And I remove myself from situation. I have another thing where I say, I go where I'm celebrated, not where I'm tolerated. So it's just living a life, being true to yourself. That's spirituality to me, Carl.
Wow, geez, I think all the words you just stated should be written in stone, man, because they're really great wisdom. And everything you just talked about, your book, I've only had a chance to read a little bit of the beginning of it, From Depression to Destiny, the definitive guide to spiritual transformation, addresses much of what you just talked about, right?
Absolutely. Yes, it does. Bruce Lipton did the foreword on that book
Oh,
for me.
I saw that. I thought that was so cool. He's one of my heroes, man.
Yeah, I met him in Australia in 2012. And it's so funny because I wasn't wearing my glasses and I'm walking on this lawn and I see this older gentleman with gray beard and he's reciting one of my poems. It's not a popular poem. I'm like, how does this old white man know my poem? And as I got closer, I'm like, Dr. Lipton? He's like, oh, call me Brucey. And we just became best of friends, man. Bruce Lipton is such a great guy. And he really believed in me, and he decided he wanted to do the foreword for me on the book.
Yeah, I saw that. That's very cool. My own book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, I quote him pretty much the same quote you have about how 7-year-old children up to the age of 7 can be programmed in because they're basically in a hypnotic state. But again, that's another experience there. But speaking of spirituality, I was curious, have you had any spiritual experiences yourself that are memorable?
Would you consider past life regression a spiritual experience?
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah. I had a past life regression that connected so many dots. If you indulge me 5 minutes, I'll give you a beautiful story.
Okay.
So, in my early 20s, 19, 18, 19, and 20, I was working at this electronics store. And there was another young man who worked there. And we had very similar features. As a matter of fact, customers would mistake us. We looked alike, and we were like brothers. And but as the relationship grew, there was a certain level of envy that I felt coming from him, and it didn't really make any sense. Anyway, we remained friends, but I kind of kept my eyes on him. And as I got more successful, once I started doing poetry, the relationship became more strained. He got married, and I found myself attracted to his wife. And this didn't make any sense. So I stopped going over his house. I never moved on it or anything, but it just, wow, she's really, really, I'm attracted to her. So none of it made any sense. And then something happened and he stabbed me in my back, figuratively speaking, and we just went our own ways. When I had my past life regression, I'm in this temple in Egypt. And I'm in this temple. I was some sort of like a pharaoh or something of the sort, right? And I'm with this woman who in this life that I love dearly, but in the past life, she was a concubine. And when I met her in this life, we both knew that we knew each other from a previous life. We just knew it the first time we met. Anyhow, I'm talking to her and I felt a burning sensation in my back. And when I turned and looked, it was my friend from this life that stabbed me in the back, and now I'm dying. And I said to him, why would you kill me? My sons are the heir to the throne. You're not even going to get the throne. And as I'm collapsing in her arms, he took her face in his hand and turned it towards him and kissed her. And my spirit left and went up. So in this life, in the past life, he killed me to get my woman. In this life, to balance the karma, I'm deeply drawn to his woman. So had I acted on that, it would have played out the karma from that. But I was of the consciousness where I'm not even going to go there. Let's just leave it alone. But at the time when that happened in my 20s, I didn't have the words to articulate what was going on. All I knew was acting on feelings. But if I acted on that emotion, I would be out of integrity. So I said nothing. But it just made a lot of sense when I had that past life regression.
Wow, what a story. And I'm curious about when you were in Egypt and this past life regression took place. Did somebody lead you through it or did it happen spontaneously?
How the past life started, it was dark. I couldn't see anything. And I was telling them that my back is cold. And as the regressor, she studied on the Dolores Canyon. As she turned on more light, I realized I was on a slab being prepared for burial. So she regressed me. Well, what happened before the burial? And then I was a pharaoh and I was stabbed in the back. And that's why now I'm being dressed for burial.
Wow. Wow. Hey, I think maybe there's a Netflix movie in there somewhere.
It's quite possible. It's quite because there's so much more I could share. We just don't have the time.
Yeah.
But again, the whole point that I would like to share and leave with the listeners or anyone watching is you're so much more than you've been told.
Mhm.
And whatever it is that you have a feeling that you want to do, it's not haphazard. That was programmed in you. You came here to exercise and to bring that into fruition. But we've been taught that to play so small that we believe, oh, this is not for me. But whatever you're thinking that you want to do, if there's breath still in your body, you can still get it done. You can still achieve it, and trust the process and trust the path.
So I do have a question. You speak so much on the aspects of spirituality, and I know you travel around and speak and everything. I've seen some videos. You have a very, very a beautiful delivery of speaking, and as you have a lot of energy. Do some people almost mistake you as a preacher for mainstream religion instead of spirituality? Do you ever get that confusion?
No, not at all. I've been told I should be a preacher, but no, my message doesn't convey religion. It conveys God is within you. There's no separation between you and God. As a matter of fact, my message clashes with the religious dogma because you don't need a middleman to get to God. There's nothing but God. You are God. And that's very triggering for religious people to say you are God. But if God is in all religions, there's three aspects of God. God is all knowing, God is all powerful, and God is everywhere. So if there's nowhere that God isn't, then I am God, you're God, my fingernail is God, my toenail is God, this glass is God. And people don't get that. It's an energy. It's not a man waiting to judge you to say, okay, well, at 17, you stole a cookie from the cookie jar. That's not the energy of God. We are made of love, and we came here to really embody that. And to embody that, we have to go beyond the challenges. But again, there's so many obstacles put in the path to distract us from who we are that a lot of times we die and never even get to realize that, oh my God, I'm so much more powerful than I've been told.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And much of what you said there, agrees with my studies of A Course in Miracles, which teaches that you are Christ, pure and innocent, all is forgiven and released, that I am the Son of God, you are the Son of God. There is no separation. It is all unity. And And now even quantum science is proving this, that there is no separation of anything. So again, I've already come up with several topics for more shows, but I would like to do this. As a coach myself, my goal is also always to help people remember their inherent power that they were born but they forgot they had. I encourage them to unleash their champion from deep within themselves. So how is it, what do you do to help unleash that champion from people you work with?
I have to not care. And what I mean by not care, your opinion, and Les Brown, I got this from Les Brown, your opinion of me is none of my business. So my goal is to walk in the integrity and the truth of who Kirk Nugent is. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but everything serves as a lesson. And I want to be accountable to myself where someone could correct me. Like I have a son, my son is grown, he's 32. And we were having a conversation and he told me something that, again, didn't sit well with him. But when he was finished, I was able to say, listen, Javon, I'm grateful that we have the type of relationship that you could tell me, hey, Dad, this doesn't sit well with me. And my ego is not to attack you, but to listen and say, hey, you know what? There's truth in what you're saying. That behavior doesn't serve either one of us. Let me make the adjustment. So I'm grateful to be at a point where I can make those adjustments and be true to myself. And that's all I would encourage everyone to do. But we have a habit where I am the standard, and Carl, if you're not walking my path, then you're doing something wrong. You got to do what I do. When we all came here to walk individual paths and to be who we came to be. So I encourage everyone who's listening, who's watching, to thine own self be true, because that's where your own power lies. And if you just sit down and decide, I'm going to be true to myself, and you'll know if you're being true because this feels good or this doesn't feel good, and you start acting there on that. But you have to do a lot of internal healing, because when I wasn't, and I'm not saying I'm completely healed, but when I still had my ego and my trauma, I didn't have the right boundaries, Carl. I'm what you would call conflict avoidant, because I grew up in so much turmoil in the house. So instead of having the harsh conversation right now, I'll just avoid it. And that wasn't a good way to live. You need to have boundaries. You need people to know, no. You can't bring that nonsense over here. So as I'm getting older and wiser, I'm beginning to live within these boundaries and being more truthful to myself, and allow people to know, if you're going to approach me, you have to approach me with this type of energy. I'm not saying you have to change your energy, but we probably not going to be able to mesh if you're coming to criticize someone else and to condemn someone else. I'm not the ear for that. So it's just being true to yourself.
I would think that, especially when you're a child and getting into adolescence, if you're, it's hard to set boundaries because many families are based on physical retribution. So if you're trying to set a boundary with your dad who's 6'4" and 250, and you're going to get knocked out probably, and that's
Absolutely.
difficult.
Absolutely. It's all a learning process. And just like you, I try to enjoy the process. Sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes we get caught up in the journey and it's just difficult. But if I can remember to enjoy the process, and like Les always said, no one is getting out of this alive. So enjoy the journey.
Why is it we get so stuck and so content in the daily beat of life? I mean, I even myself, I'm a wild and crazy bachelor, and I find myself going through the same thing every day, and I sit down and go, oh man, okay, time to go to bed and start all over again. We just get in this beat of contentment, and it may not necessarily be good.
We're creatures of habit, and we're not taught how to be intentional about our lives. So we go along to get along, and we just get into a routine. So you have to be intentional. So one of the things that I do, the first thing that I do when I get up in the morning, because I intend to be here for a long time, so I have to act like that. So the first thing I do is do my lymphatic drainage system, clear the different lymph nodes. And I exercise. I do push-ups, I do chin-ups, I do squats, because I know that if you're not intentional, all of a sudden, I know people my age. I know one guy my age, and he's in Pampers.
Oh.
56. So it's about being intentional. But I know another gentleman, he's 92, sharp as a whip, plays chess every day, always reading. So I act like I want to be here, and I do the things that's going to create the life that I want. At 65, at 75, I want to be in my right mind, taking care of myself. You look at Les Brown. Les looks very strong. Les is 80 years old, but he looks like he's 40, 45. But running with him for years, I know his routine. He gets up, he reads, he does his push-ups, his exercise. And from him, I learned the same routine, and I started doing it. And if you look at Les, he looks absolutely great.
Yeah, and I understand personally that exercise, both physically and mental exercise, are key. I've been a runner outside for 44 years, and like you, I get up, have my coffee, feed the cat, and then I go out for a run, almost
Mhm.
every day. And it keeps me going. Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly right. I know a lot of guys my age who can't even get out of their easy chair, and
Yeah, absolutely.
there's a remedy for that, like we're talking about here. So.
Being intentional, Carla, is huge. You have to be intentional.
With the current state of the world stuck in fear, anxiety, judgment, lack, and attack, do you believe there's hope for mankind?
Absolutely, because it's one person at a time. It's the individual deciding I'm going to walk away from this. I'm not doing this anymore. And in the current state of the world, I think people are getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the generation that comes after us, what is that, the Gen Z?
Mm.
And the generation after them, they look at our life and said, I watched my dad work 40 hours, 40 years, and achieve nothing but poverty. I'm not doing that. And now we're saying, well, they're lazy, they don't have any ambition. But did we really come here to have ambition? Or did we come here to enjoy the process? Ambition was something that was given to us by capitalist society. We came here to bring the magic that's within us into the world. But we were told there's only one way to do it, and that's a 9 to 5. And that's not true. That's not true. In Jamaica, where I grew up, the only asset that was recognized was going to school and get a degree. And it took someone like Hussein Bolt to say, well, I came to run. I didn't come for the degree. It took someone like Bob Marley to say, well, I came to sing songs, not to get a degree. It took someone like Marcus Garvey to say, well, I came to be a Pan-Africanist, not to get a degree. And that's how we started broadening our consciousness. When Bob Marley started in Jamaica, he was disdained. He was this dirty Rasta because it's a Christian nation and he had this long locks. Bob Marley went to Germany and they embraced him. And all of a sudden, he's a Jamaican hero. So the fact that regardless that he was being ostracized and cursed in his own homeland, he still did what was his passion, which was playing the guitar and singing his song. And then he went outside and came back, and now the entire village embraced him. He's our national hero. We love Bob Marley. But it wasn't like that in the 70s. Bob Marley was this ugly, dirty person. But
That's
he was true to himself.
that's such a classic line. What is the line? A saint will never be welcomed at home, but will be recognized elsewhere. I know I really screwed that up, but it's
Yeah.
true. And that happened to Bob Marley.
Yeah, a prophet will never be embraced in his own home.
There you go. Yeah, prophet. Yeah. Well, we are talking to the amazing Kirk Nugent. I'm just so grateful to have him here on the show. Kirk, we need to talk about your new campaign called I Need You to Remember. Can you tell us about that?
Wow, thank you so much for asking me about that. So I need you to remember I don't remember when, Carl. I think it was maybe 1999 to 2000. I wrote a poem. It was 2000. I wrote a poem called I Need You to Remember. And it starts by saying, just really quick, I've been 3 decades in the darkness, 3 decades in the wilderness, 3 decades of amnesia, and now I'm beginning to remember. I know you're thinking that we haven't met. Don't get too perplexed, but hear me before you step when I say, my God, you look familiar. I'm beginning to remember that we're born of light, created to shine long before infinity could tell time. So long story short, I wrote the poem. It actually came to me, and I thought that was it. About maybe 9 years later, I wrote a part two, then a part three. Part three is called Answer the Call, and it became this popular poem on YouTube, got almost 500,000 views, and it was the one that had them book me in Australia where I met Bruce Lipton. The whole I Need You to Remember series became a 6-part series, and it's about remembering who you are, not buying into the consciousness of war, the division, operating from a place of service to others, operating from a place of love. And I've always wanted to make it into a movie like The Secret. And I never had the resources because that would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now with AI, I could do it for a fraction of the cost. So I'm putting a campaign out where I'm looking to raise, I need to buy new computer equipment, stuff like that. So I'm looking to raise about 20 grand. And I'm looking to make I Need You to Remember into a movie. And that's what I'm doing with the I Need You to Remember campaign. So there's a link someplace. If you watch my Glitch in the Matrix video or go on my YouTube, which is YouTube/Kirk Nugent, you'll find a link under my latest video for the I Need You to Remember campaign.
Yeah, I did see that. It was going to be a mini a movie series. You know, I have had one of the icons of the law of attraction on here, and I've gotten to kind of be a friend with him, Dr. Joe Vitale. He was
Oh, yeah.
Secret. You know, he's been in 30 movies, and he's producing another movie. You know, maybe I should hook you up with him and see if he can help you.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah, he's an amazing man. You would love him. He has a show called Zero Limits Living Television, and I've been his guest on his show, and he's been a guest on my show. I'm going to send his information to about you to.
Thank you. Joe Vitale, he's the Honoponopono guy, right?
Oh yeah, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Wow. You know, one other thing, because we're going to wind up here, but this caught my attention here. You mentioned about service to self or service to others. I've had twice now in the last half a year. Dean Graves, author of the book *The Enigma of Consciousness*. He's literally a philosopher on the topic of consciousness, and he also studied the raw material. And that's one of his go-to lines. Are you service to self, service to others? And I think anybody listening, just contemplate those two terms and think, which one are you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, very, very interesting stuff. But like I said, Kirk Nugent has been here. Kirk, you're still doing a lot of live speaking engagements. How can people find out your speaking schedule?
My website is my name, KirkNugent.com. And I must tell you, if you Google me, there's another young man by the name of Kirk Nugent. He's from Jamaica as well. We're the same complexion. We look alike, and he's a speaker as well. So I think he has maybe a little more hair than I do. And yeah, that's the main difference, but we actually look alike. So my website is the best way to find me, Kirk, K-I-R-K, Nugent, N-U-G-E-N-T.com. And you can contact me there as well.
And you are traveling around still doing speaking engagements?
I am going to get back out there. I have stopped, with COVID, and then I moved to Mexico to work on certain projects. But in 2025, I intend to be back on the speaking circuit.
Yeah, you should get out there. You know, Joe Vitale also stopped during the wildemic, and last year, his first foray out, he went to Ireland and had 14,000 people show up to see him talk. So
Wow.
your audience awaits, Kirk.
I would love to connect with Dr. Joe Vitale.
Yeah.
Definitely, it would be a great connection.
I'll connect you with him. He's a beautiful, beautiful man. So, and one last thing, the best way for people to connect with you and work with you is via your website, KirkNugent.com.
Yeah, you can via my website, or if you just want to follow the stuff that I talk about, especially spirituality, then it will be on YouTube, youtube.com/Kirk Nugent. I'm going to be posting a lot more in there. I kind of took off, and for the past maybe 4 or 5 years, I was taking care of my parents. My mom passed. I took care of my dad, then he passed. Then I took care of my mom, and she passed. And that took me off the scene for about maybe 5 years. So it's just time now to get back out there.
Yeah, I can relate. I took care of my parents too in their late years. So important job and work. And speaking of that, Kirk Nugent, you are doing important work. Thank you, thank you, thank you for what you do. The world is such a better place and more light-filled because of you. Thank you, Kirk.
Carl, I am you and you're me, because I see the same thing in you, brother. I see what you're doing. I see the work, and you're diligent, and you're building it step by step, day by day. And without words, your energy comes across, and your energy is very peaceful. It's very loving and very compassionate. So we need more Carls in the world. Thank you.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.